Pursuant to the Open Public Meetings Act, Chapter 231, Public Laws in 1975, this meeting notice was sent to the Asbury Park Press on May 15, 2018, and it has been duly advertised in the Asbury Park Press issue of May 18, 2018. All municipal clerks of the townships and boroughs within the regional high school district have been duly notified, and the requirements of posting of notices have been met on May 15, 2018. If we could all stand up for the Pledge of Allegiance.
United States of America, to the republic which stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right. With respect to item C, approval of minutes for our meeting on October 15th. Does anybody want to put forth a motion to adopt the resolution to accept the minutes? Roll.
Mr. Asatola? Yes. Mrs. Cappiello?
Yes.
Mrs. Van Gelder?
Stay.
Mr. Lavin?
Stay.
Mr. Moses? Mrs. Sotera?
Yes.
Mr. Bruno? Yes. Mr. Messenger?
Yes. All right. Mr. President, were there any communications received that the board needs to be aware of?
Communications are distributed to the board seat and kept on file at the board secretary.
Okay, we'll now go to Mr. Sampson for the superintendent report.
All right, thank you, Mr. Messenger. Thank you, board. Welcome, everyone. So a few items this evening to open my report with, which I think really speak to some of our strong community bonds in the greater Monmouth area here. And the first one, we've had the good fortune over the past couple of years to have Ocean First really sponsor some model classrooms across the district. And once again this year, we were fortunate enough to have a winning buildings selected, and that's Colts Neck High School. So I'd like to call Nina Emanuario up from Ocean First because they were gracious enough to give to the school a $10,000 grant to realize that vision of a modern classroom. So, Nina.
Good afternoon, or good evening, yes. It's been a long day. It's my pleasure as an employee of Ocean First Bank to represent our Ocean First Bank Foundation tonight, because this is really an exciting time for our schools, especially the schools within the Ocean First footprint. But I just want to give you a little bit of background on it so that you understand who we are and why we do this. Ocean First Bank started in 1902 in Point Pleasant Beach. And we've maintained that location, and since then have grown to a very large bank that spans across 12 counties. We have 76 branches, and we're at $7.5 billion in size. But in 1996, when the bank was pretty small, it decided at that time when it went out for its initial public offering to go from a mutual-based bank to a stock-based bank, they said, you know what? Let's create a community charitable foundation, which actually was the first of its kind in the nation. And let's set aside a portion of that stock, $13.4 million, and let's let, as the bank is growing, we can give a portion of those proceeds out, and let's give it to those in our footprint, in our community that need the money. And we built it on 4 major pillars, and one of them is education and youth development. So that's where the foundation decided to create the opportunity for this type of grant process. Since then, that $13.4 million has allowed us to give out about $36 million. And we've gifted well over $1 million specifically in the grant areas to public and private schools across our footprint. Well, we issued this grant for a model classroom. There were many we issued it with a couple of things in there. It had to be inclusive, it had to be creative, it had to have a theme, and a number of things. So 144 schools wrote for this grant, 144. And out of them, 7 high schools won $10,000 each. We gave out $250,000. So picture this, 144 schools write, 7 high schools get it. 7 high schools out of that stood out from all the rest. Why? Because your educators in your schools care deeply about your students. They care so much that they sat down and collaborated on a winning grant. I'm going to share with you just a synopsis of what their grant was. And it was published in a book, which now has been memorialized and given out to many along the way so that they can follow your lead. But this is how the Colts Neck High School won this grant, and it's spectacular. It really is. Colts Neck High School will use their grant to transform a mathematics classroom. Colts Neck High School supports mathematics instruction for over 1,400 students in grades 9 through 12, including special education and English language learners. Students taking courses from resource to advanced placement mathematics will benefit from a new flexible dynamic workspace with movable furniture, multiple whiteboards, and accessible technology that allows teachers and students to have the resources they need to engage in collaborative approaches to authentic real-world mathematics. Specifically, the school will use their grant toward the purchase of multiple technologies, one-to-one Chromebooks, an interactive television, and a flat screen for small group projection. I'm also told that, word's gotten around the school about this classroom, and that, like the rest of the students, are really excited. They can't wait to get in there and start using this stuff. For example, using Chromebooks for research and design along with an interactive television for demonstration and collaboration, geometry students will be able to move beyond the pages of their textbooks to investigate the creation of virtual environments from the parabolic arcs of grass. Oh yeah, and a movie to the I didn't read this before I came here, transformational guided paths of their favorite video game characters. I heard it read to me when I went to the grant dinner. So, this is what you wrote for, and we can't wait to see it in action because we will come back and we will share your story as far and wide as our footprint expands, because we also are very proud of you, Colts Neck High School. So on behalf of Ocean First Bank and Ocean First Foundation, Dr. Brian Donahue and Maria, and I'm sorry I forgot her last name, we've got $10,000 here. I know you have the big check somewhere, right? But this is what they received, and we'd like the superintendent in. It won't work if it's upside down.
I trust you.
Wait, get my right side.
Closing, I just want to mention the fact that Ocean First Bank again will be granting $400,000 in scholarships to students that attend Georgian Court, Monmouth University, Ocean County College, or Brookdale, or even down south Atlantic Cape Community College, Stockton, Rowan, and Cumberland County College. So if any one of your graduating seniors are going to any of those higher learning centers, please apply for the Ocean First grant. If you're in our footprint, you're entitled to apply for the grant. It's really an amazing thing. So $400,000 again this year will go out to scholarship dollars like that. So thank you for your time. It's been a pleasure to be here. And if there's anything that I can leave with you, and that is we're a bank that cares deeply about the communities that we serve. And because of good customers and increasing our footprint, we've been able to grow the foundation through the stock value, and the stock value increases when we're successful. So that's the last thing I'll leave you with. And thank you. God bless you all. Good night.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Ocean First has been a terrific partner. My one request is with 5 other high schools, perhaps we keep some of the actual details quiet as we apply down the road. But that was we've been fortunate to benefit from Ocean First in not just through the model classroom, but through some of the economic opportunities that we've had with our business teachers in the district as well. So thank you. You're a terrific community partner, so much appreciated. And speaking of community partnerships, we have the Spooktacular committee members here. I'm going to call Judy Guy up in a moment. However, just a note about Spooktacular. It is, in my estimation, the preeminent community event in the area. And I'm not going to steal the thunder, but I think that when students from our 6 high schools come and display their artistic, I feel like this is terrible, display their artistic talent across the Freehold borough downtown, and as the community members come in and out and talk to the students while they're doing their work, and FRHSD is kind enough to donate pizza for everyone on that day. It is the living embodiment of what a community event should look like. It's the living embodiment of opportunities that students should have to be out in the community, and the community to both engage with them as well. And it's something that I'm really proud to be a part of in this district. In my 8 years as superintendent, this was the only year I missed because I was traveling for a conference during it. And it's always one of my favorite days of the year. So I'd like to call Judy up to talk a little bit about the day, the event, and recognize our winners.
Thank you, Mr. Sampson, and the board. Everyone is so cooperative for all of our events throughout the town of Freehold Borough. We're all excited to be here once again to celebrate the creativity of our art students. And on behalf of the Halloween Spectacular Committee, I'd like to also again thank the board for all that they do for us. Not only for the window painting, but they also managed to get us all 6 high school bands for our annual parade, our annual costume parade. So we thank them for that also. And of course, without the art teachers, past and present, we thank them for encouraging these amazing students and furthering their artistic endeavors year in and year out. Jay Robinson, Administrative Supervisor, is also an essential member of our team and always has our best interests at heart. Thank you, Jay. I would also like to thank the volunteer judges who take time out of their busy day to walk the streets of Freehold in the borough to select the winning scenes. It takes a lot of time, but I know they really, really enjoy it. Some of their students have come up along the way, so that's even more important to them. So our judges this year were Jeff Freeman, Lynn Reich, who's here, Leslie Daly, and Mary Ann Earl. So we thank them very much for doing this every year. At this time, I'd like to thank some of the members of the Spectacular Committee who were able to make it tonight. If you'd all please stand. I appreciate that. Lisa Tiedemann is in the back. Tracy Moriarty. I get nervous, I forget names, even though I've known these people for 20 years. Noelle Alvarius, Jean Vajant, Barbara Kane, and Billy Anderson, who is our 2018 chairman, who kept us all together this year. These individuals are truly dedicated. They work so hard for so many months to provide fun, family-oriented Halloween spectacular events in the borough. For those not familiar with our committee, we also decorate the borough with the cornstalks and the bows, and also the Monster Mash, which is for all ages. That really grew in size this year. And Noelle actually is in charge of that. And of course our annual Halloween costume parade, which I mentioned earlier. So again, thank you for all of your help to the board. And now I'd like to introduce again our chairman, Billy Anderson.
Thank you. Thank you, Judy. Michael Federici cannot be here tonight. What I want to acknowledge is Mike Federici's Family Italian Restaurant in Freehold Borough, who has been with us for many years supplying pizza for all the students and our teachers. We are truly grateful for his partnership in this event. And this is a little more personal for me. Jay, could you please step up here? The nicest guys I saw that I've ever met in my whole entire life. Jay has also been with us for many years and is extremely supportive He can also be found in downtown Freehold on window painting day, encouraging the students and perhaps enjoying a slice or two of pizza. Your impending retirement is bittersweet for the Halloween committee. We are happy that you can now relax and enjoy the golden years. We are sad that we will no longer have the pleasure of working with you each October. I'd like to present you with this plaque of appreciation. Thank you, Judy. Halloween Spectacular presents to Joseph Robinson, to a man whose loyalty and devotion over the years has given so many the opportunity to witness the Freehold Regional High School District's art students' extraordinary talents in Freehold Borough during the annual spectacular events. The tradition lives on. We will be forever grateful with thanks. The Freehold Spectacular Committee 2018. We do hope that you'll stop by next year, maybe have a couple slices of pizza with us, all right? All right. I'd also like to recognize Annette Piazza. Annette, please join me at the podium. Annette is without a doubt one of the most efficient and caring members of the regional team. Her assistance and organizational skills help us tremendously, and we truly appreciate it. We've worked with Annette for over 15 years. She continues to go above and beyond to coordinate the art students and the bands. We cannot thank her enough for her efforts, her patience, and her friendship. Thank you. And last but not least, another thank you goes to Rebecca Policastro, the district's communications coordinator, for arranging the media coverage and taking pictures of all the windows. I'm told that there is an amazing display on the district's website. Now, I'd like to turn the presentation over to Tracy Moriarty, Barbara Kane, and Judy Guy, our window painting committee. I'm sorry about that, yeah. These three women worked diligently and tirelessly to make this happen. Come on up, Tracy.
Excuse me, I have a little laryngitis going, but I'll give it my best. Before we begin the actual 2018 window painting portion, there are two special individuals who deserve recognition. First, Tracy Moriarty. Tracy Tiedemann Moriarty has been with the committee for several years, most recently joining Judy and me on the window painting. Her mom, Lisa Gibson Tiedemann, led the window painting committee several years ago. Her aunt, Leslie Gibson Daly, has been a judge for over 10 years. And why do I mention these individuals, you might ask? Well, interestingly, we recently found out that a young lady by the name of Lillian Augustine was one of the original artists to paint in downtown Freehold in the late 1940s. Lillian has since passed, but she graduated from this very high school. She subsequently married Leonard Gibson, and she is Tracy's grandmother. Little did a young Miss Augustine know that we'd be here tonight with her family and yet another window painting event, which now includes two daughters, a granddaughter, and occasionally Tracy's son, Devin Moriarty. Tracy, this is in memory of your grandmother. And yes, please.
Halloween Spectacular 2018, window painting, most original, 1947, Lillian Augustine.
Good evening. As you just heard, I am the oldest granddaughter of Lillian Gibson. I am honored to present another very special trophy to one of my grandmother's best friends since their high school years, Mrs. Marion Higgins. We invited her tonight this evening under the guise of seeing how far window painting has come over the last 60 years. Mary was also one of the original artists to paint in downtown Freehold and still enjoys riding through the town to see all the creativity that October brings to the borough. It gives me great pleasure to present her with this long overdue trophy.
This also has the most original 1947 Marion Higgins.
And we thank her son Casey for getting her out tonight because she was a little leery about coming out too late. So.
All right, time for the awards. All right, winning schools honorable mention, 2 schools. Freehold, Principal Linda Jewell, Supervisor Judy Lagana, teachers Dan Finaldi and Jean Kuhn, painting Ghostly Manor, painted by students Gemma Cerrado, and Elizabeth Aguilar. And Freehold Township, Principal Elizabeth Higley, Supervisor Jennifer Williams, teachers Marissa Alvarado and Max Boyle, painting Venom, painted by students Kylie Frew, Madison Coors Sailor. Oh, yeah, any name that I call, please come up. All right, 3rd place. Thank you very much. 3rd place, Marlborough. Principal, Mr. David Bleakley, Supervisor Jane Goldstein, teachers Lauren Fraser, Johanna Zeller, painting True Reflection, painted by Alexis Bonilla and Hadeline Lyons. Good job. Right over there.
Thank you very much.
Pivot right, guys. Hang on, hang on. We got all fun folks up here.
Pictures upside down.
That's right. Excellent. Thank you very much. All right, 2nd place, Oaks Neck, Principal Brian Donahue, Supervisor Deirdre Kova, teachers Audrey Upkind and Lauren Haberman, painting Story Night Scream, painted by Gianna Bravaco and Brian Hill. Brian cannot be here tonight, he's playing the basketball. Outstanding, Brian. I'm glad you can make it. Thank you very much. Were you careful? They're not. Okay. Congratulations. All right, we're on to 2nd place. Freehold Township, Principal Elizabeth Higley, Supervisor Jennifer Williams, teachers Marissa Alvarado and Max Boyle. Painting Alice in Wonderland, painted by Oliver Jameson and Brianna Douglas. Please step up to front. You guys are busy tonight. Here, run it over there. Thank you. Thanks, Tracy. Last but not least, first place. That's last but not least, first place. I really didn't. Thank you, Mr. Mosley. Freehold Township. Principal Elizabeth Higley. Supervisor Jennifer Williams. Teachers Marisa Alvarado and Max Boyle. Painting Grave Digger. Painted by Sarah Fakult and Matthew Berga. Please come up. Thank you. Glad to have you. All right, thank you very much.
So my thanks to all the spectacular committee members and the folks that, like any other community, it's only as strong as a committed core to keep it the way it is and to continue to maintain that tradition. And I think the folks that work on the spectacular committee year in and year out do an unbelievable job of keeping the tradition alive. And I know it's an awful lot of work. And so we appreciate your time, and we're very, very humbled and fortunate to be a small part of it as well. So thank you very much.
Mr. Simpson, volunteers.
And the call goes out for next year, and we are always looking for volunteers, and it's a wonderful endeavor, and I think that the students can attest. It's also an awesome experience for the students. It's project management. They started from the very beginning, come up with a concept, an idea, sketch it out, and then they come out into the elements and they have a timeline on getting that work done. And even managing that from start to finish is an awesome learning experience. And then when it comes down to it, it really approximates what the real world looks like. You have a deadline, timelines, you scope out your specs of your project, you move through different phases of that project. And so there's an awful lot that goes into the final product that you see on the windows. And the fact that they're painted in one day, and that's what they look like, and there they stay, is, I think, a testament to the artistic ability and talents of our students, and also our wonderful faculty and staff that are supporting in that process. So, thank you.
I forgot to mention earlier when we were speaking about Lillian Augustine and her daughters. There's another daughter here this evening who is not a painter, from what I understand, but Lori Gibson Basque is also here tonight to support us, and she's also very involved in the town. So thank you, Lori, for coming out tonight.
So we are going to transition into the biannual violence and vandalism report. And one of the things that we decided several years ago in this district, so the state requirement is that you have to, publicly go through your numbers, what they look like, different student offenses and things of that nature. And most places simply, read the statistics, and it's part of a longer report that the superintendent or designee gives, and that constitutes the reporting. We think it's important to highlight some student work that's going on in our buildings to mitigate some of the, oftentimes poor choices that teenagers make, and we know that they're going to make. We're a unique district in the sense that we're almost 11,000 teenagers. And so we know how important it is to have programs and opportunities and support in place to help guide our young men and women to make the best decisions possible in the moment. And so we've coupled that, we've taken the opportunity of reporting these statistics twice a year to highlight some of our programs and some of the work, the student-led work that goes on in this district to really mitigate any poor decision making. So I'll call Mr. Dillon down to get the process started. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Sampson. I'm just going to ask Board of Education members if you don't mind staying in your seats, because there's going to be a presentation from the Avid students at Freehold High School, and then that's going to be followed by my violence and vandalism presentation. So prior to me speaking about our student safety data statistics, I'm just going to call Mr. Hines, Assistant Principal at Freehold High School, and Mr. Jewell, Principal at Freehold High School, to speak about the Avid program here at Freehold Borough. So come on up, Mr. Jewell.
I'm really excited tonight to be able to spend a few minutes talking about the Avid program that we have here at Freehold High School. Of the 6 schools in the Freehold Regional High School District, we're the only school that has a bona fide, recognized, formalized Avid program. Avid is an acronym that stands for Advancement via Individual Determination. And briefly how it came to be, in 2007, we had our middle states study. And there was an 88-page report that emerged at the end of that study. And the middle states report was very, very favorable about this school, as well it should be. And one of the things, though, because you don't just want to hear all the good things, you want to know how you can improve. And one of the things that came across is that a random student who was just chosen by a member of the visiting committee said, at Freehold High School, there's an awful lot of things going on for the very academic student, and there's lots of support programs in place for the student who has special needs. But for a kid like me, whose parents never went on to college, I'm kind of having to figure it out all on my own. And as a principal, that really stuck with me, and it resonated with me. And I began to look for a program that could help to meet the needs of this group that, quite frankly, I had to admit as principal, was largely overlooked. And at that time, David Bleakley had come over as social studies supervisor. And we began to sort through a number of programs. And we finally hit upon the Avid program. And as I said, that stands for Advancement via Individual Determination. And what I found out is that it was started in 1980 in San Diego. And it had a very simple philosophy, that to raise expectations on the part of the students, but more importantly, to give them the support that they needed if we were raising expectations for academic rigor for these students. You know what is so interesting is that, at least for me, is that this then dovetailed, and if you are a member of the Board of Education here or a teacher in this district, you know that the strategic action plans over the last 10 years have also addressed that need about equity and opportunity, providing opportunity for all our students with the proper support. So tonight, what we've asked is really not for you to hear me talk about what Avid is and what it does, but to hear from select students for how it has impacted on their lives and dramatically changed the trajectory for them for post-secondary opportunities. Before I go on, I want to introduce two people who, Dr. Bleakley has moved on, he's now the principal of Marlborough High School, but in his stead, we have Miss Madalena Gundaker. Madalena? Who is the go-to building person. And I also asked one of the Avid teachers, you stay with your class as the Avid elective teacher. You pick them up when they're 9th graders, and you stay with them until they graduate in 12th grade. And Mr. Fredericks is getting ready to let loose his first group of Avid students. So I'm going to turn it over to Ms. Gundaker and Mr. Hine, and then most importantly to the students. So that's it.
Welcome and good evening. As Mr. Jill said, my name is Mrs. Gundaker and I'm the Avid Site Coordinator here at Freehold High School. This is my 3rd year as the Avid Site Coordinator, and I also did teach my own Avid class prior to becoming the Site Coordinator. A little bit about Avid. The curriculum is based on what they call WICR. Okay, WICR stands for Writing, Inquiry, Collaboration, Organization, and Reading. Okay, so through writing, Avid supports writing through the use of Cornell note-taking, which is this special note paper that students use in all of their classes to take their notes. And here are some examples of some of their Cornell note-taking, as well as some of their writing. They do a lot of peer editing, reflections, quick writes, and these are strategies that they not only use in their Avid classroom, but they use in every single class that they take here at Freehold High School. For inquiry, they have skilled questioning techniques, Socratic seminars, and they will tell you that, again, Socratic seminars are used widely in their English classes, even by teachers who are not Avid teachers. And here are also their tutorials, okay, which one of our students will speak about, okay, so twice a week, or now twice a cycle, I should say. We have college graduates come in and work as tutors to guide students through the process of trying to figure out some problems that they're having in some of their classes, whether it be from a test, a review sheet. They collaborate in small groups, and they use cognitive level of questioning to guide the students through assisting them with their work. Next, collaboration. Again, Socratic seminars come up, philosophical chairs, peer editing groups, service learning projects. Okay, these are all things that the Avid students do throughout their 4 years here at Freehold High School. Next, there are some pictures, organization. Okay, binder. Each Avid student, and we have a student here to show you his binder. Each Avid student has a binder that they are to keep organized with all their classes. They get a new binder every year if needed. They have their pencil case in there, their agenda, which now most of it's on their phone, but a lot of things to really just help them stay organized. So you'll see that most of our kids who aren't even Avid students, they want in on that binder. So I'll see kids that have a binder similar to Avid students, and they just like the way that they are so organized. So they kind of ask us, can I have a binder? Do you have dividers? How do I kind of keep myself organized like that? And then the last is reading, okay? And they do obviously deep reading strategies. Note-taking is huge. Graphic organizers are huge, okay? And some other things we do through the Avid program is we have guest speakers come in, whether they are from professions that students are interested in, college advisors, EOF advisors. So this year we already had in, oh my gosh, I'm drawing a blank. We had a physical therapist from Kessler this year. In the past, we have had business people, a nurse, firefighters, police officers. We also have coming in a photographer, an engineer. So we try to have guest speakers at least once a month. And also we go on college visits. They actually went to Rowan today. So within their 4 years of being in the Avid program, they pretty much have the opportunity to visit every single college in New Jersey within their 4 years. And they go and they take a tour of the school, they visit dorm rooms, they speak with the college advisor, they speak with students at the college, And it's just a really amazing experience for these students to be able to visit all these schools, to have these guest speakers come in addition to everything else that Avid has to offer them. Okay? So at this point, to speak a little bit more about this, I would like to call up a few current students, Leslie, Quincy, and Lisa, to speak about the Avid program. They are all current seniors.
Good evening, everyone. I am Leslie Lazaro, a current senior who has been enrolled in Avid for the past 3.5 years. Through this program, students work together to better the skills needed to be successful during high school and beyond. In Avid, we learn various organizational tips, practice good studying habits, good note-taking skills, and help one another as much as we can. This all comes in handy when taking numerous honors, AP, or dual enrollment classes. The thought of taking college-level classes in high school can be a little intimidating, but with all the extra help Avid provides, everything becomes a lot easier. All the note-taking skills and studying strategies transferred right into my AP Spanish class, where I made flashcards for every test and quiz and made sure to review my notes on a nightly basis. The constant review of my notes and the flashcards led to me having a really successful year, maintaining an A average or higher every marking period, which then led to me running for a position in Spanish Honor Society and becoming the president. I took the AP College Board exam for Spanish and got a 4, which then led to me becoming state certified as bilingual. I am a firm believer that without the constant support and help Avid has provided me with, I would not have found confidence within myself to run for leadership positions, nor have been able to pass College Board exams with flying colors. Avid has taught me how to be successful in honors, AP, and dual enrollment classes that will now lead into healthy habits that I can use down the road. Avid has not only made me a successful student within the classroom, but has become the reason for why I have become so much more confident in myself, met new friends, and have found a teacher I can trust and go to in case of any problems. Overall, I am thankful for the bonds I have built and the friends I have made. Thankful for all the memories and friends, and thankful to have taken this program in the first place. Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Quincy Davis, and I'm a senior in Avid. I'm here to talk about the support that Avid given me. And before I joined Avid, I wasn't the best student in the class. I really didn't ever do homework. I wasn't really that student. I really didn't care about school. But then once I joined Avid and came to high school, school became the number one, because I knew in order to play sports in college, I'd have to be good in the classroom. And thanks to Mr. Fredericks and Ms. Jewell and Ms. Gundager, they pushed me to be above average and to be the first person in my family to go to college and actually finish, hopefully. And without them, I wouldn't be who I am today, and hopefully I'm going to be and be as successful as I am. Ms. Gundager was talking about binders. This is my binder. Organized, I have each section for each class. I have my pencil case, flashcards.
My name is Nisa Galindo, and I'm here to talk about tutoring and tutorology in the Avid program. It's something we do now since we have block scheduling, they're like cycles, so we have it twice a cycle. It helps a lot to fill out the TRF form. So it's basically a form where you have a question, and while you fill out the form, you're trying to figure out the question. But within the question, you have a problem, so that's where you get stuck. And you go to your tutor groups to try to see if everybody together can collaborate to try to help each other to find the solution to the problem. And I think it's great for everybody to do it because not only you might have problems with that class or homework problems, test problem, any problem, other students might also have a problem, and they can apply it to any other class they can, because people have different classes, but it also ties up sometimes. And I think it's a great idea that we collaborate together, because peers also might use it in their daily lives, or not even just in school, but also in their social lives, personal lives. So I think that's also good. And it's also good that we have little groups though, because that way there's more time to collaborate within like the period, and also because since it's such a small group, there's more time for people to talk and collaborate, and you get like one-on-one. There's also like tutors, and I'm not trying to say Mr. Fred is old, but they're closer to our age, so they understand more, and they're just fresh out of college, so they also have it fresh in the back of their minds. But it's a good program, I really like it, and it gives me time to talk to my friends, and it's also sometimes if you finish early, you could do your homework, you could study up, do your Cornell notes as Leslie said, or you can organize your binder like Quincy's. So yeah, it's a good part of the Avid program, and I really enjoy Avid because it's got me where I am today. Thank you.
Thank you. At this time, I would like to call up some former students who are now freshmen in college. Talia, Canada Kelsey, and Ty Cascone.
Hi everyone. I'm Talia Canada. I'm a first-year student at Monmouth University. And I'm just here to talk about kind of how Avid helped me a lot with like the application process and to get into college. So kind of going back to what Ms. Jewell said, I came from a family like my mom started college, and then but like it's obviously very different now, like with the Common App and stuff. So we kind of were like confused to say the least about like the Common App and FAFSA, and just like it's like a long, lengthy process, writing an essay and everything. And Avid just kind of really helped me through that. Without Avid, I don't think any of my application would have been nearly as good. I was accepted into all 6 colleges I applied for, and I don't think that would have been possible without Avid. We started really early, really early, with just thinking about college in general. We started visiting schools freshman year, and I was like, why are we doing this? I'm not even thinking about college right now. I'm a freshman, like, why do I need to know any of this? And looking back, that was the most helpful thing in the world. I got an idea of what I liked in college, what I didn't like about colleges, what would work for me. And I think without Avid, like, I wouldn't have visited nearly as many schools as I was able to. We traveled I don't know, like hours away to like every school we could possibly go to in New Jersey. And I was really able to see what worked for me, what didn't. And yeah, it kind of just like, the process started so early, and I can't be more grateful for that, because I don't know, without it, I don't know, I think I would have been pretty lost. The applications are hard. Like there's a lot to it. FAFSA is even harder, it's very complicated. And we just started all that so early. They were so helpful and supportive through everything. And I couldn't have asked, my class as well was like, we were all best friends by the end. There wasn't many of us by the end, but we were all like best friends. We saw each other every day for 4 years. So yeah, my class became my family, and we supported each other through it. And I don't think I could have done it without them. And now, like, I'm succeeding in my first year. College isn't nearly as scary as I thought it would be. And yeah, that's all I have to say. Thank you.
And I also go to Monmouth University, and Tal happens to be my roommate, so I was happy to find one. For me, like a big thing was organization, and definitely like having a binder and always being like using my agendas. And I also take Cornell notes to this day, especially for some of my classes, because college is hard. Like they don't care. They're like there's like no helping hand if you're on your own, like you're your own person. So like even though like Avid taught me like basic study skills on how to be a good student, like overall like it taught me how to be a leader. Because now like I find myself that I always take charge in like certain like group projects, and I like any chance I get, like I'm not scared to do like new things. So like as well, like me and Tyler like both in the same Avid class, obviously, and like we both help each other like throughout. Like we're always like, let's go study here, like let's use the library. So we also help each other, and we just take full advantage of everything, and we make sure like to the events, like we'll go to like it's called the Student Center, and like they have certain branding programs, so we'll go there. And there's also programs to help you get involved in campus, and we'll go there also. So overall, it's just for me mainly like it taught me how to be independent, and that's like the most valuable thing I can take from me.
Good evening. I'm Ty Cascone. I am also a student at Monmouth University. I think Avid is a very helpful program, mostly because the task of finding what college you want to go to is a very daunting task. And Avid, they help you, like as soon as your year starts, your senior year, you're thinking about college right then and there. You're not waiting until like November when the deadlines are due. You already have your stuff written. You have tutors to help you with it. You have a lot of help. And I definitely think that without Avid, I would not be as successful as I am right now. Once I started college, I tried to like veer away, from the stuff that Avid taught just to try it out. It didn't work. The stuff that Avid teaches you is definitely the best stuff to help you succeed. And I definitely think that with all the stuff that Avid has taught me, I am a better student for it. Like I would give anything to have the TRF, like all that group collaboration. I would give anything to have that now. Like I'm a commuter, I don't live on campus, so I don't really have like many people I talk to like on campus that I know very closely. And I think that's definitely something that I benefited from in high school. And I think it's something that a lot of people can benefit from. I believe that Avid is very helpful. I think that they do give you the tools that you need to succeed, and that's really all I have to say.
How about another round of applause for all our students? I think schools that work well are schools that allow our students to feel a sense of belonging. We all know that the schools in New Jersey are excellent. The schools here in the Freehold Regional in particular are kind of the gold standard when it comes to public education. And a program like Avid is so powerful because it gives that sense of belonging. It gives students a niche in which they can develop an esprit de corps. They can go through a shared, I don't want to say shared suffering, but it's a shared experience, right? It's kind of, I was a coach for a long time, so I would think about that in terms of how you build a successful team. You're building a successful team here, right? That's what we're doing. And I think about words like collaboration and the rigorousness of the curriculum. All this is important. And it's this program kind of encapsulates all that, right? So we've heard the qualitative data here. Let's look at the quantitative data, because I think the numbers will speak very clearly in terms of what this has meant for our students. So in terms of the rigorousness of the curriculum, we've seen that our Avid students have, as freshmen going through to senior year, have seen the number of AP, honors classes, Brookdale Community College dual enrollment classes, have seen those increase over time. The average GPA increases as time goes on, from a 3.5 as freshmen to a 4.02 as seniors. Avid honors and AP courses on our current seniors, again, I think it shows you a very positive correlation. And the key here, I think, is this. We're not giving answers, we're giving tools, right? The idea is that we allow our students to develop the process that they need to learn. So when they get to the next step, a Monmouth University or whatever it might be, they have those tools that allow them to succeed in a place where we pull away those supports, and they know how to make that work for themselves.
There's our current GPA among our current seniors. And these are the universities or colleges our Avid students have gone to. Every senior that's made it through the program has gone on to college. We're 66 for 66 as of right now. So, yeah. You can see a whole range of schools listed up there. And we're very proud of these students, and it's great to have our graduates come back tonight, and we're very hopeful for our seniors as they push on from here next year. So, again, thank you all for coming tonight. At this point, I want to introduce Mr. Dillon.
And $3 million. Thank you, Mr. Hine, Ms. Jewell. So, again, this is just one example of the many programs offered within the Freehold Regional High School District that really support our students to make good decisions and gives them a sense of belonging, as Mr. Hine talked about. Mr. Hine is going to bring up my presentation for the violence and vandalism data. As he's doing that, I just want to keep something in mind for everyone. So I'm going to show you a lot of numbers. Keep everything in perspective. As Mr. Hine mentioned earlier this evening, we have 10,500 teenagers in our high school district. That's a lot of teenagers within 6 high schools. So while some of these numbers may be a little bit concerning, keep in mind we have large public high schools and we're serving a big body of students. So, thank you, Mr. Hine. So what I'm going to present is data from the last half of last year. So it's January 2018 all the way up through June 2018. So it's those 6 months of time here within the Regional High School District that this data represents. Okay, I'm going to start really broad and give you the large categories, and I'm going to break it down a little bit smaller so you can see what it looks like on a more granular level. So there's 5 main categories. You can see violence, vandalism, weapons, substance abuse, and HIB. What I like to do just for reference is if you look on the left, there's phase 2. Again, that's a period of January all the way through June. You can see the year 2016, 2017, and on the right would be the last half of last year, just for some point of reference. Now, whether you see numbers go up or down, that's not really the most important thing because numbers can change at any time. Incidents occur throughout the year. There's a different ebb and flow to it. You can see violence slightly up this year, and I'll go into what that looks like. So that would be a fight or an assault between students. Vandalism, obviously down at 0. Weapons would be 1. That's weapons possession. Substance abuse, you can see that those numbers went up there. And as everyone here is, I'm sure, aware, especially if you work in a high school district or you go to high school, there's definitely a concern with vaping in teenagers, so e-cigarettes. I actually read an article by the New York Times that was put out about 2 weeks ago, and if everyone's familiar with Juul, Juul is now stopping their advertising through online. They're pulling back a lot of the teenage-friendly flavors that are delivered in stores, and they're actually upgrading their security for younger students to be able to purchase these items. It's definitely a concern for middle school and high school students. The article actually estimated about 3 million middle school and high school students have started using e-cigarettes within the last 3 to 4 years. So this is really a phenomenon that we're not just dealing with here in the Freehold Regional High School District. This is nationwide. And I've talked to colleagues who work in middle schools. They're seeing it start there. We're certainly seeing it here. And I'll go into a little bit of the programs that we have put in place to try to curb that and help our students make good decisions. And finally, HIB, which is harassment, intimidation, and bullying. The number 11, that stands for the number of confirmed harassment, intimidation, and bullying cases that we had from January all the way through June. You can see that number is actually down. Again, that number can change. Again, we put programs in place to help students make good decisions. A lot of that involves counseling in addition to discipline. So violence numbers here, you can see simple assault. That is up at 12. I just, to talk about assault, again, you may have an incident where a student goes and hits another student. One thing that is beneficial there is other students don't always hit back. That's classified as an assault. And we have had students, especially at the end of last year, who made the good decision. They showed restraint, they didn't hit back. It's classified as assault instead of a fight, which you can see up there at the bottom, which is down a little bit. where it's two students mutually engaging in physical contact. Sexual contact, again, those are usually pretty low within our district. We have 2, and threats usually around the same with about 7. Here, if you look up at the top, vandalism, damage to property, theft, trespassing, we had 0 incidences between January and June. When you look at weapons, again, we're looking at possession. We only had 1. For assault with a weapon, we had 0 at the last half of last year. For substance abuse, as I discussed there, you can see students who would be under the influence, that was at 63. Students in possession, that's a student who actually has an illegal substance on them. Again, the vast majority, and you'll see a slide later, shows that that's marijuana, specifically the e-cigarette vapes, which is something we've been contending with. Distribution can mean a student who is giving another student an illegal substance or possibly selling that. You can see that's at 2. Types of illegal substances used, so again, the numbers speak for themselves, and that number 88 can be a little concerning, and I actually did the numbers. So we have 10,500 students. That number represents, more than less than 88 students. We're looking at less than 1% of our student population. So while we're not happy with that number, we're going to continue to try to bring that down. It is a small part of our students, but we do want to focus on them with our student assistance coordinators, our support systems, our counselors, to get them the help that they need and make sure that they're not under the influence in school and drugs aren't being brought here to the school environment. The only other area where we did have some concern is unauthorized prescription drugs. So those could be a drug that a student may have on them. Students are not allowed to carry their prescription on them in school, must remain with the nurse. Students found with their prescription medication, this does go down as a violence and vandalism number. Alcohol, you can see that's at 6, and then when you look at the other drugs, you see they're all at 0. So again, the main concern being marijuana and the vaping or the Juul. This slide details confirmed HIV incidents, so you can see it by month. Again, you could look back at the data all the way back 2011, 2012. There's really not an ebb and flow. Sometimes the numbers spike, sometimes they go down. We do try to identify certain areas of concern. So if we see there's an issue with the freshmen or students on a football team, or there seems to be an issue with students targeting race in a certain school, then we're going to apply counseling and try to bring those numbers down and make sure those students are getting the support they need. You can see here, obviously, for comparison's sake, again, those numbers were down at the end of last year to 11 confirmed hits. Alleged HIV incidents, so these are incidents where we must investigate a report of harassment, intimidation, bullying. At the end of that investigation, we find that it doesn't actually meet the standard of harassment, intimidation, bullying by the Anti-Bullying Bill of Rights, which is state law in New Jersey. So a lot of times we may go through an investigation and find that there was an issue there, but it was really a violation of the student code of conduct. So a student would be handled through counseling that way and/or discipline. These are incidents that we've investigated. We found 8 where we actually investigated it. We didn't find it met the definition of harassment, intimidation, bullying. So those incidents were again handled either through the code of conduct and/or counseling. So this is just a little bit about the programs that we offer here. Certainly within our high schools, we noticed a concern with the e-cigarettes, and being a former assistant principal in the district, I had the same concern as well. So we worked with the building level administrators, Mr. Sampson, and we provided a parent program by Mr. Collier last year to really educate parents on it. And what we found is that a lot of parents don't even know that these things are harmful. So students are going home, they're telling their parents, oh, it's just, fruity flavor, there's nothing bad in it, there's no carcinogens. So we found that out by offering these parent programs, and our student assistance coordinators who work closely with our administration and our students at providing counseling, whether it's for HIVs, different types of conflict, or certainly substance abuse. When they're meeting with parents, they're finding the parents had no idea that these substances were harmful. I think more information is getting out there, and we want to raise awareness. But there's more work to do with that. So we really try to partner with parents Our student assistance counselors are having parents come in, especially if the student's committed an infraction with substance abuse, to educate them. So they're spending time with that student assistance coordinator so they understand how to help their child and how to prevent their child from engaging in this type of behavior in the future. We had Dr. Matt Bellis come to the district last year. He's also been here this year as well, just to talk about healthy outlets for teenagers, because too many times students are going to their phone or they're resorting to drugs or nicotine to get what we would call an unnatural high. So Dr. Bellis talks about natural highs and getting out and becoming involved, kind of like the Avid Program spoke about, getting involved in sports, getting outside. Healthy stress outlets that don't involve an e-cigarette or a vape or making bad decisions. Finally, the student assistance coordinators and I were lucky enough to run into a gentleman, Timothy Shoemaker, who works with students and also parents on the harmful effects of vaping. We were really impressed with his presentation, so we invited him in. He's been to a few of our schools already this year, and his message is very powerful. And he kind of roped students in by explaining to them how these big tobacco companies and jewel companies are almost tricking them into buying their product. And then students will tell us, I'm hooked, I'm addicted, because the nicotine in them is so concentrated. These are conversations our counselors have with these students every day. So he really presents that out to them and tries to get them to think like, hey, I'm being duped here, but really does it in a kind of humorous, funny way that students walk away with a good message and hopefully making better decisions in the future. You can see a whole list of other items there. Another group I'd like to point out are our student community alliances. So each one of our towns has an alliance against drugs and alcohol. They partner with our student assistance coordinators, our administration, and student groups in the school to really raise awareness in the community. And as I think everyone here knows, we can't do it alone in the schools, so we really need to leverage our partners in the community, work with parents, work with the counseling agencies in the community to help get these items under control. So that concludes my presentation for the student safety data systems. I'm going to ask board members, if you don't mind, you can head up to the podium and we'll bring up the screen. Thank you.
So thanks, Mr. Dillon. I'll just stay down here while the board transitions back up to the podium. A few other items. First and foremost, I think that one of the things that we all need to realize and work with the community on is that the stakes are much higher for decisions in 2018 than they have been in previous years. The vaping is a public health crisis, period. The fact that, as I've said repeatedly, and this board took the strong stance against the legalization of marijuana, because we understood what the ramifications of that might be as it pertains to access to students in our building, and that we believe strongly that you can decriminalize it without legalizing it for recreational purposes. As I drive down Route 9 or Route 18 going home every day and pass a vape shop every block and a half, it's disheartening to me because we're seeing those effects. The FDA is taking a strong stance on that. We've been working with our local officials over the past year and a half or so to say, hey, this is becoming, you're introducing an entire new generation of kids to smoking, period. And we had come down from a school perspective in really a lull for a good number of years prior to the vapes exploding, and we're seeing the issues that we used to see 12, 15 years ago really resurface with what that access looks like. So it's constant work on our end, and I'm proud of the programs that we have in each of the 6 high schools, and we are continually expending resources to make sure that we do everything that we can do to help guide our students in making the best decisions possible. Now, just a few other notes to the board, and I'll turn this back now. We are approving the resolution for our QSAC Statement of Assurance this evening, and I just want to make a note on that. So QSAC basically has 5 categories, for lack of a better term, and districts that score 80% or above are quote-unquote highly effective. In 4 of those 5 categories, we'll score at 100%. And in one of those categories, we've self-scored ourselves at 79% with data provided by the county. And a couple really significant reasons for that that are incredibly disheartening to me. I've given testimony to the Senate Ed Committee about the CUSAC requirements. We've worked with the Department of Education officials to plead our case as a regional high school district. But basically, we're being punished for our park participation numbers, as we had an exceptionally high refusal rate. That downgrades the score that we're able to score in that category. And so what happened was we had a meeting about a year and a half ago with the 31 regional high school districts in the state who said that you are disproportionately, this was the Department of Ed officials, the last regime, not the new regime, which I'm much more hopeful about, and said you are basically penalizing us for students refusing to take a test that we cannot mandate. And so that's what we're looking at with that data here. Another significant issue that we have in there that once again, to me, we're being punished for providing programs for our students. So we have well over 100 students in this school district that we educate until the age of 21, driven by their IEP. Those are students with significant autism needs, students in our workplace training program, students in some of our LLD programs, and the state counts the graduation cohort up to 5 years. And so all of those students that we proudly educate until the age of 21 actually count against us in terms of the graduation cohort matrix that the state has configured. And so we cannot achieve all of the points under that as well. And then finally, the real ringer is an issue around chronic absenteeism and what's designed as chronic absenteeism. And the intent is positive. The intent is that students should be in school. We pointed out that seniors that attend a number of college visits and are absent periodically would fall under that category, and we have to. We're taking a deep look at even our exemption policy for final exams because we think that some of those numbers are artificially getting caught up in that reporting. I wrote the state contracted with a gentleman by the name of Peter Chen to orchestrate their work around chronic absenteeism. We challenged the way they were categorizing that. I wrote to him directly and really challenged his thinking on what it looked like, because they group all students together to an average. And so when you have some students, we've had a sharp increase with the number of students with significant school phobia issues, things of that nature, that are out for extended periods of time that count against our absentee numbers. And that those numbers are not necessarily represented accurately. So a lot of challenges that we've had with the CUSAC, with the monitoring. December 5th, the Joint Committee on Public Ed is conducting another hearing for feedback. I've submitted my testimony through the Garden State Coalition of Schools. A number of my colleagues have also agreed to testify. And my only hope is that my testimony from 2014 barely needed to be reworked for the new CUSAC in 2018, which is very disheartening. So keep the board apprised on that as we move. Last week, our school conferences were moved to November 27th. We had a lovely weather phenomena. Not quite as bad as up north. Obviously, the forecast caught folks a little bit off guard, came a little bit late. We made every effort to make sure that we got our folks home, our students and staff were able to get home safely. We canceled the conferences for that evening, obviously, once we realized that travel was not going to be safe, and those are rescheduled for November 27th. Also on November 27th, Mr. Boyce and I will be at the county office with our mid-year budget review. It's a favorite day for both of us. But one of the things that I do applaud the county for doing is that they require Mr. Boyce and I to come down, your VA and your superintendent each year, and explain how you're tying in some of your financial numbers to your academic programs and what that looks like. And so Mr. Boyce pulls from all the departments to put together a quick summary that we're able to talk through, and I think that we always represent the district very well in that meeting with how we're spending our dollars and how we're deploying our resources. And then finally, over the past week or so, Ms. Higley has announced her retirement, and Dr. Hazel and I have begun the process of screening external candidates for the principal position. We certainly have a number of internal candidates. But that's an important position. We have a tremendous amount of time in which to get that hiring completed. And so we're going to take our time with it and vet as many candidates as possible to throw into the larger applicant pool. And we feel real confident about where our timelines lie to make sure that we have an excellent candidate in play ready to begin at Freehold Township on July 1. And then as a side note, I'm proud to note that some of the district work, we've been fortunate to be featured in Phi Delta Kappa in the past. In the March edition of Ed Leadership, there's a synopsis of a lot of the district work that's gone on here related to our mathematics course progressions and our work around de-leveling and what that looks like in our school system. And they're going to run a feature on the work of the district. So it's a feather in the cap to the school district. And then we will have the Thanksgiving break soon enough. So that concludes my report, Mr. Messenger.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Sampson. All right, with respect to board reports, just last week I believe we had a policy committee meeting.
Yes, we did. The policy committee met on Tuesday, November 13th, where we discussed two policies that are on the agenda for first read tonight. Both are mandated policies. The first is policy number 8561, procurement procedures for school nutrition programs, and is required for the district to be in compliance with federal regulations. The policy does not impact our programs regarding our school lunch program. The second policy is number 8820 that deals with opening exercises at school, namely the recitation of the Pledge of Allegiance by students and the manner in which students may conscientiously object to the pledge. The changes do not impact our practices in any way and are recommended to bring policy current with the relevant statutes and cases. Neither policy has any financial impact on the district.
Okay, well, thank you very much. All right, moving on to public participation, but before we get into that, Mr. Toscano.
Just two items, just to note on the executive session agenda that were discussed or announced prior to going into executive. The first is under item number 7. The board discussed the order to show cause filed with the commissioner, and the board also discussed docket number A-001778-17.
All right, nobody had signed up for public participation. Is there anyone here who'd like to speak? All right, then, we'll move forward. I'd like to take items G1 through K4 on one ballot. If that's okay with everybody. Inclusive of additions, actually, G1, approval of resignation of Jonathan Phillips, and G10, approval of change of status for Luis Garcia. Does anybody want to put forth a motion to adopt the resolution to adopt G1 through K4?
Second.
Roll, please. Oh. Anybody have any questions, any comments they want to put forth before we take the vote? All right.
Mr. Acetola?
Yes.
Mrs. Capiello?
Yes.
Mrs. Fankhauser?
Yes.
Mrs. Lavin?
Yes.
Mr. Moses? Yes. Mrs. Sutera?
Yes.
Mr. Bruno?
Yes.
Mr. Messinger?
Yes. All right, moving on to old business. One thing I did want to say, and this is referencing some old business we did, which Mr. Sampson referred to with respect to that resolution we passed, advocating for the state government not to legalize marijuana, recreational use marijuana. And we just saw tonight the statistics which basically no one sitting at this table is too shocked about. But it's still very distressing. I still, almost on a daily basis, looking at the two newspapers, the two biggest newspapers in this state, the Newark Star-Ledger and the Asbury Park Press. Almost every day on the front page, cheering it on, hoping it's done by the end of the month. You can't get enough of this, and it's just very discouraging when the leading media outlets are cheerleading for this, and we see really the negative impact that this would have to our children. It's very discouraging. So, sticking with old business, Mr. Bruno.
I just wanted to give a little shout out to the Cal Township community, Farmingdale community, for supporting the 5K race on October 21st to fight addiction. Great turnout from the community of Hal and Farmingdale. And if it wasn't for the young people of Hal High School, we couldn't have held the event. Contact is a drug crisis intervention hotline. We raised about $4,000, all profit, to keep their doors open for another few months. And if it wasn't for the support of the Hal High School and the community of Hal and Farmingdale, we wouldn't have been able to have the event. Other than the fact it was the coldest day in October with 50 miles an hour winds, athletes came out, people came out to support it, and it was very moving to hear some of the stories from the parents who've lost children due to addiction. It was an incredible day, and the young people of Hal High School really supported it, and they heard those stories, and they were very, very moving. Another shout out to Doreen Shapiro and the gymnastics parents of Manalapan High School. They hosted their 16th in a row state NJSIA gymnastics championship. Well-run event, very, very organized. And this is a shout out to Doreen and her gymnastics parents for 16 years to run a state tournament like that. It's a really thankless job. So, little congratulations to them. And the championship was won by Freehold Township. So, congratulations to Freehold Township. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. All right, moving on to new business. First, I'd like to welcome Dr. Rich Allen, who's actually a retired principal from Neptune High School. He also worked in Freehold Regional as a teacher and assistant principal, and we have his Brookdale College students here tonight for the Intro to Education class, and we certainly appreciate you coming out on a Monday night.
Are you aspiring teachers? Future teachers of America? Good luck. Apply here.
Again, welcome. All right, also with respect to new business, at a couple of our prior meetings, we've talked about the drastic cuts in state aid that this district has suffered and is on the verge of having even more cuts going forward. Mr. Boyce gave a presentation showing us the numbers and how it's going to lay out over the next 7 years. And it's a pretty dire outlook for the families of this district who are going to send their kids to high school here. I think it's pretty dire for the taxpayers too, because at some point, I'm sure the state's going to come and do whatever they do to somehow finagle higher property taxes out of all of us. So it's very disconcerting, as everyone on this board has, acknowledged and heard about. So we've bandied about a resolution that we are going to consider tonight. And what I'd just like to do is to just go over some of the big parameters of it. The resolution essentially is going to give the administration the approval to make the first moves to joining the class action lawsuit that many of our peers have started with respect to the drastic cuts in state educational aid. If you look at the big picture, we're talking about potentially $25 million being cut over a 7-year period, which would essentially mean catastrophic cuts to programs, busing, extracurricular activities. And at this point in time, the board is not of the vein to just sit around and take it, basically. So, with respect to the resolution authorizes school funding litigation. We are stating in the resolution that we're receiving less than the state aid we should otherwise be receiving pursuant to the school funding formula. And we're really looking to potentially join the litigation to it that addresses the unequal and disparate results caused by the funding formula that the state implements. And at this point in time, the resolution is going to authorize an amount not to exceed $10,000 to support this litigation. So does anybody want to put forth a motion for consideration of this resolution?
I'll put forth the motion.
Okay, any second?
Second.
All right, discussion.
Mr. Messinger, if the board has copies of the resolution, but for the benefit of the record, if I could just read this in quickly.
Oh, I can do that for you. I'll do it.
Okay, all yours.
Okay, whereas the School Funding Reform Act of 2008 reflects the current New Jersey law that provides state aid to public school districts, and whereas the New Jersey legislature has appropriated limited monies to fund such state aid for public school districts, and whereas the Freehold Regional High School District is receiving less than the state aid it should have otherwise received pursuant to the School Funding Reform Act, and whereas the arbitrary and inconsistent determination of the local fair share as determined by the state of New Jersey will negatively impact the taxpayers who support the Freehold Regional High School District. And now therefore be it resolved that the Freehold Regional High School District hereby determines to initiate litigation to address the unequal and disparate results caused by the School Funding Reform Act, distribution of available state aid, and its impact upon its local taxpayers. And be it further resolved that the Freehold Regional High School District Administration is directed and authorized to provide whatever assistance is reasonably required in order to pursue such litigation in order to further the interests of the Freehold Regional High School District and its taxpayers, and be it further resolved that the Freehold Regional High School District will authorize an amount not to exceed $10,000 to support said litigation, such amount to be determined by the Freehold Regional High School District after consultation with other potential litigants. In the event there is need for additional funds, the proposed expense would be considered by the Board of Education. Any such expenditure of funds will be processed according to the Freehold Regional High School District's applicable procedures. Okay, we are ready to proceed for a vote. Please take the roll, Mr. Weiss.
Mr. Acetola?
Yes.
Mrs. Capiello?
Yes.
Mrs. Fankhauser?
Yes.
Mrs. Lavin?
Yes.
Mr. Moses?
Yes.
Mrs. Sutera?
Yes.
Mr. Bruno?
Yes.
Mr. Messinger?
Yes. Okay, sticking with new business, Mr. Sampson.
Thank you, Mr. Messinger. So just want to welcome two new supervisors aboard. So Tom McCaffrey, Tom, can you stand up? So Tom comes to us from Heightstown High School. Really, we had a multi-round interview process. Tom came out with flying colors. Folks loved him. Mathematics teacher, has taught all levels, been a long-time track coach there, and has been involved in all aspects of the school community. And we think Tom is going to be a phenomenal addition to the Freehold Regional High School District, and he'll be based here at Freehold High School. So Tom, welcome aboard. Jen Burgess, Jen here? There she is, okay. Hey Jen. So Jen is going to be supervisor at Manalapan High School. She is currently a social studies teacher at Colts Neck High School. Teaches different levels of courses, AP, a lot of AP sections that we're going to have to ultimately find. But incredibly involved with the professional development at Colts Neck High School, has been an integral part of our past two strategic plans, and has really been in a number of leadership positions in the district as a teacher, and we're excited to promote her to a supervisor at Manalapan. So welcome aboard, Jen.
All right, moving on to the last order of business for the night, which is the adjournment. Does anybody want to put forth a motion to adjourn? Any seconds?
Second.
All in favor? Aye. This meeting is adjourned.